Where I go is none of your business. That was the line my wife threw at me, cold as a slam of winter air, before the door shook the frame and she stepped out into the night dressed to impress someone who was not me. She did not know I was already 3 moves ahead. I held a heavy-bottomed glass and watched the whiskey catch the low lamp light, the amber spinning as my hand went still. Across the hallway, Ava Hale stood at the long mirror, fastening her earrings like she was performing on stage. The silk dress hugged her like it had a job to do. A sharp new perfume pushed into the room, expensive and not familiar. "Where are you going dressed like that?" I asked. I kept my voice even, but there was a tight wire running through it. She turned just enough for me to see her profile. For half a second I thought I might catch the old smile, the one from our early days. Instead her mouth tipped into a hard curve. "Where I go is none of your business." It hit like thunder. In all our years, she had never spoken to me like that. Not once. She snatched her clutch. Heels clicked across the floorboards. The door banged. Silence rushed in after her. I sat there with the glass against my lip and could not swallow. "None of your business." This from the woman who used to say she could not breathe without me, who squeezed my hands during our vows like she meant forever. Now I felt like a stranger standing between her and her plans. I took in what I already knew but had refused to say out loud. The dress was not for a girl's night. The makeup was layered with care. The hair was styled in a way she had stopped doing for me long ago. The truth settled into my bones, cold and heavy. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen while I scrolled past names I knew by heart to one I had never used. 2 years back, at a Chamber of Commerce end-of-year gala, I met a private investigator named Frank Dalton. We had ended up on the patio with cigars while he told quiet stories about corporate fraud and the people who think rules are for other folks. He pressed a card into my palm and grinned. "You never know when you might need me. Husbands, businessmen, trouble finds us." I almost tossed that card on the way home. Something made me keep it, call it instinct, or the way Ava had already started drifting then, the way her eyes chased bigger rooms and brighter lights. I tapped the number. "Dalton," a steady voice answered. "This is Jason Hale," I said, keeping my breath level. "We met at the gala 2 years ago. You gave me your card." A brief pause, then a low chuckle of recognition. "I remember you, Mr. Hale. What do you need?" I stared at the door my wife had just slammed. "I need you to follow my wife. Tonight. I want to know where she goes, who she is with, everything." He did not sound surprised, just efficient. "Send me a photo and her number. I will take it from there." When the call ended, I set the phone down and closed my eyes. I saw us in our first apartment. Cheap paint rollers, music buzzing from a tinny speaker, Ava laughing with a streak of blue on her cheek. She told me forever even when all we owned could fit in the back of a borrowed pickup. That promise had thinned out over the years until it finally snapped. Tonight was not about suspicion anymore. Tonight was about proof. Wind rattled the windows like the house could feel what was coming. Morning stretched itself across the bedroom. The other side of the bed was cold, smooth, untouched. I lay on my back and watched the ceiling fan turn the slow, lazy circles of a night without sleep. Every creak in the boards kept reminding me of the quiet she left behind. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I did not jump. I just reached for it, ready to hear the truth I asked for. I reached for the phone with a hand that felt heavier than a brick. Frank Dalton's name glowed on the screen. "Mr. Hale," he said, brisk but not unkind. "You were right to call." My throat tightened. "Tell me." "She met an older man. Moneyed. The kind who does not check price tags," he said. "Dinner at a high-end place. White tablecloths, crystal, the works. I have photographs." Her hand brushing his as the champagne glasses touched. Afterward, they drove to the Windsor Hotel. "I already sent everything to your email." I closed my eyes just long enough to steady myself. "Good. Send a full report prepared for legal use." "Understood. You will have it before noon." The line went quiet, and the only sound left was the clock working the room 1 second at a time. I sat there with the phone resting on my thigh and stared at the still house. I pictured Ava in that silk dress, laughing across a candlelit table at a man with silver in his hair and a smile that looked like a trap. My chest ached, not from rage, but from something colder, clarity. Whatever I had been pretending was over. The ding from my inbox broke the silence. I opened Dalton's email. Photographs bloomed on the screen one after another. Ava stepping out of a car like she had practiced it. Ava leaning in close to a man with smooth cuff links and a predator's grin. Ava crossing the marble lobby of the Windsor, his hand at the small of her back like a brand. Timestamps. Locations. Angles I could not argue with. I let the air out slow. No shouting. No glass against a wall. Just the quiet decision of a man watching the last illusion dissolve. I scrolled once more, and then tapped a different contact. A locksmith whose card I had kept after a break-in on our street a year back. When I mentioned upgrading our locks then, Ava laughed and asked who would ever bother robbing us. I kept the card anyway, the way you keep an umbrella on a bright day. Morning service, a voice answered. Yes, I said. Every lock in the house changed today. Front, back, side entry, the garage. New keys and new codes. We can be there by 9, he said. I will be waiting. I stood with deliberate calm. I opened the closet, pulled down Ava's matching suitcases, and set them on the floor. I folded her clothes like I was putting away a season of my own life. Dresses from weddings where we used to dance, shoes I bought with birthday cash, silk blouses that still held that faint, expensive scent. Piece by piece the suitcases filled, and each folded thing felt like another stone sealing off a room I would not live in anymore. By the time the last zipper closed, the version of me that loved her past reason was gone. In his place stood a man who was colder, sharper, and a lot harder to move. At exactly 9, the doorbell chimed through the house. I opened the door to a stocky man in clean overalls with a toolbox in hand. A white van idled in the driveway with quick, secure locksmiths painted in faded letters on the side. You hail, he asked. I nodded. Come in. Change everything. Front door, back door, side entry, the garage. If it locks, replace it. He gave a soft whistle as he looked over the hardware. Must have had a scare. Something like that, I said. The words reached my mouth, but never made it to my eyes. He started drilling. Metal hummed and clinked. While he worked, I moved room to room, zipped the last suitcase, and stacked the luggage by the door in a neat line. Ava's life reduced to rectangles with handles. I paused at her vanity. Small compacts, a fan of brushes, bottles of perfume with glass facets that caught the light. I remembered a younger night when she dabbed scent on her wrists and asked, almost shy, do you think I am beautiful enough for you? I pulled her close then and told her I was the lucky one. Looking at those bottles now felt like the world's meanest joke. By 10 the locksmith straightened and nodded. All set. New keys and a fresh keypad code. Nobody gets in without your say-so. He placed a small ring of keys in my palm. The metal bit cold. Thank you, I said. He packed his tools and left, unaware of the storm he had just sealed inside. When the van turned out of the drive, I opened the front door and slid the suitcases onto the porch, lining them up under the gray light like exhibits for a jury. I stood there a moment and looked at what I had done. It felt final. I locked the door with one of the new keys. The click was small and clean and carried more weight than a shout. I dropped the rest of the keys into my pocket and felt my jaw set. Whatever came next would happen on my terms. I grabbed a small duffel from the closet and packed like I was heading out for a long weekend. A few changes of clothes, my laptop, and the documents I could not afford to lose. I parked my car a half block down the street the night before, out of habit more than strategy. As I walked, neighbors lifted hands from across their lawns. I waved back and kept my face even. On the outside I was calm. Inside, something colder moved with purpose. I was not going to greet Ava with shouting or pleas. I would not give her the show. I was going to take away the things she believed were untouchable: comfort, security, control. Piece by piece, I would let the fantasy fall apart until the only thing left was the truth and the weight of it. At 10:15, I drove to Cole Turner's apartment on the other side of town. Cole opened the door and took one look at me. You look rough, he said. I handed him the duffel. I need a place for a few days. He did not push for details. He just nodded and stepped aside. My silence said enough. So did whatever he saw in my eyes. Near noon, my phone buzzed again. Frank Dalton's report had landed, detailed, complete, and the kind of record a judge does not have to squint at. I downloaded the file and pressed my lips thin. The chessboard was set. All I had to do now was move the pieces I had already chosen. Cole's place was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the click of the air vent. I sat at his little kitchen table and opened the report on my phone. The photographs rolled past with time stamps and locations. Ava smiling in the kind of light restaurants use to make bad decisions look like good ideas. Ava with her fingers hooked on a man's sleeve. Ava and the silver-haired stranger walking under the Windsor awning, the lobby doors swallowing them both. So it is true, Cole said from the counter, arms folded. I did not answer. I forwarded the whole packet to a private electronic mail account, one Ava never knew existed. In that same folder, I already kept a clean scan of our prenuptial agreement. It said, in plain lines and signatures, that she would not get a penny that was not hers. When we signed it, Ava had laughed and told me we would never need it. I had believed that once. Now the paper felt like a tool made for exactly this day. Another buzz. A short note from Dalton. Full legal file ready. Hotel confirmed an overnight stay. Lawyer, Cole asked. After the bank, I said. His eyebrow went up. She does not have access to your account, does she? She does, I said, and I heard my voice harden. And I am not leaving a cent for her to touch. I stood, slid a slim folder of identification and account information under my arm, and went to the door. This will not be clean, Cole said. Once you start, there is no pause button. That is the point, I said and left. No storm in my chest. No shaking hands. Just the steady rhythm of a plan I could walk in the dark. I checked my watch. I could make the bank before Ava would ever think to head home. The lobby smelled like polished wood and disinfectant, the kind of neutral air that does not give anything away. I pushed through the glass doors and kept the same measured pace I had carried all morning. No hurry, no panic, just inevitability. A young banker met me with a practiced smile. Good afternoon, sir. How may I help you today? I set the folder on the counter and opened it flat. I want to move every dollar from this account into a new account in my name only and permanently remove any linked access. Then I want every old access closed. She blinked. People do not usually ask so directly, but she found her footing. Of course. May I see your identification? I slid it across and watched her fingers move over the keys. Numbers jumped and settled on her screen. Balances Ava would never see again. Do you want the transfer to remain internal or go to a separate branch? She asked. Separate, I said. I had already opened a new account that morning under an address Ava did not know. While she typed, my mind ran an old scene. Ava standing at our kitchen sink years ago, smiling, asking if she could handle the household bills because you trust me, do you not? I had trusted her completely. Trust had turned to ash. Betrayal has a way of teaching final lessons. She slid a stack of forms across the counter and pointed to the lines. Please sign here, sir. This will remove any previous secondary access and make the new account solely under your control. I signed, pen steady. Final. Would you like a cashier's check or a debit card today? Both, I said. Issue them now. A few minutes later, she handed me an envelope with the new account details, a card, and the documents I needed. I tucked everything into my folder the way a careful worker drops tools back into a case after the job is done. I turned to leave, then paused and set the folder back down. One more thing, I said. Can you flag this transfer so nobody can pull it back? I asked the banker. She hesitated. Once the wire clears, that is automatic. Good, I said, and closed the folder. Outside, the late afternoon sun slanted across the glass like a long exhale. I checked my watch. A few minutes to 4. The new account packet sat on the passenger seat, neat and heavy. For the first time since last night, I let myself show a thin smile. One step done, more to go. I started the engine and called Cole. Bank is finished. The lawyer is next. I will meet you there, he said, and hung up. I pulled into traffic like it was any other Tuesday, smooth, signal on, patient at lights. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. By the time Ava came home, the house would speak for me. The clock on my dash rolled past 5. At 5:03 p.m. According to the doorbell camera and the neighbor across the street who texted me a play-by-play, a black town car eased to the curb. Ava's heels clipped fast on the walk. The driver held the door, but she did not look back, still floating on satin sheets and expensive wine. For suitcases sat lined on the porch like packages nobody wanted. I had set them in a straight row. The neighbors noticed. Small towns always do. She stopped short. The doorbell cam caught the first words. No. A quick, breathless protest to nobody. She dug for her keys and jammed one into the lock. It turned halfway and refused. She tried again, harder. Nothing. She pounded on the door. Jason, open the door. The house stayed quiet. Her calls hit my phone and went straight to voicemail. She called again. Same. The cloud backup mirrored her call log in near real time. I watched the list populate while I sat in my truck outside the attorney's office. She tried call next. 2 rings, disconnect. She tried a friend. The doorbell mic caught a soft, sorry voice. I cannot tonight. Family is in town. Another door closed. She scrolled fast. Finally, she called him, the older man with the silver hair. A woman answered. Who is this? Possessive. Sharp. The line went dead. Even on a screen, the silence felt like a slap. The porch audio picked up the neighborhood the way it always does. The mower humming, bikes rattling past, somebody across the street whispering. Is that her? She was on display and she knew it, standing with her luggage like a runaway who forgot to plan where to run. She tried the key again. The metal held its ground. The new lock did not know her anymore. Jason. She pounded the wood. You cannot do this to me. Do you hear me? You cannot. The windows gave her back her own face. The house did not. She fumbled out a credit card. Fine, she said, voice cracking. Hotel. I will go to a hotel. A ride came quick. She threw herself into the back seat and barked an address I knew by heart. Minutes later, the front desk scanner chirped out a flat denial. Insufficient funds, the clerk said, polite but curious. That is not possible. Ava snapped and tried another card. Then another. Decline. Decline. The clerk's smile went from professional to pity in 3 swipes. Humiliation has a sound. It is quiet, and it wraps around the throat. Ava grabbed her bags and muttered, I will handle it, and got out of there before the looks could stick. The cloud feed showed the last call she made. There was only one option left. Home. Her parents' place. Night fell while she rattled her suitcases up the narrow walk, each wheel bumping the cracked stone like a drumbeat. She smoothed her hair and wiped her face with her fingers, tried to make it look like she meant to arrive this way. Her mother opened the door before she could knock. Older eyes dropped to the luggage, then climbed to the smeared makeup and the wrinkled dress. Ava, what on earth? Can I stay? She asked. Her voice was thin and brittle, ready to break. Somewhere across town a traffic light changed, and I did not move. I sat with the new keys in my pocket and felt the steady weight of what I had started. I was not yelling. I was not chasing. I had simply taken back what was mine and let the truth do the rest. I did not need to be in that doorway to picture how it went when Ava showed up at her parents' place with 4 suitcases. A mother stepping aside without a word. A father lowering a newspaper and saying nothing because silence can weigh more than questions. I have seen that look before. It measures you. It says it already knows more than you plan to admit. Back on my side of town, I walked into a law office Cole Turner had recommended. I carried Frank Dalton's folder, photographs, timestamps, the hotel receipt, and the prenuptial agreement that Ava once called just paperwork. The meeting was short. The attorney read, checked the prenup language, and nodded like a mechanic who sees a fix he can do with his eyes closed. This will be clean, she said. With these exhibits, the court will not hesitate. File it today, I said. She filed electronically. The stamp hit the record before lunch. I signed what was put in front of me. My hand did not shake. My face stayed still. For me, it was not just legal. It was surgical. A final cut to remove what had already died. For the next 3 days, Ava kept returning to our house. I know because the doorbell camera caught mornings and afternoons, and neighbors texted me play-by-plays. Each day she stood a while, and then left the same way, slower than she came. The curtains did not move. The porch stayed quiet. To her it must have felt like I vanished. On the 2nd day, she waited longer, leaning on the gate, staring down the drive. People watered lawns and fetched mail like they were not looking, and then looked. Small towns do not miss much. Shame sits hot on the neck, and you can see it even through sunglasses. By the 3rd morning, she went to my office building. The receptionist told me later that Ava came in with dark glasses and a voice pulled small. Is Jason in? She asked. He is not available today, came the line I had instructed them to use. She waited anyway. Hours. Walked a little circle. Pretended to read her phone. At dusk they locked up. I had been across town all day. She never saw me. That night, she tried her friends. The same folks who once told her better men, richer men, and easier lives were just a matter of choosing. I am busy tonight, Evie. Not a good time. We will talk soon. Calls that did not ring back. She made one more call to the older man. I did not hear the words. I do not wiretap. But the log in her cloud showed the number, a short connection, then an abrupt end. The town has a way of telling the rest. A woman's voice answered and told her not to call again. Whether that is exactly how it went or not, the result was the same. The line went dead. Her parents' house grew heavier by the day. You can feel when a father uses a newspaper like a shield. You can hear a mother's quiet movements when she does not have the heart to ask. You can tell when people talk in low voices through walls at midnight. It is not condemnation. It is something colder, disappointment you have to breathe through. On the fourth morning, she sat on our front step and did not even knock. She just stared at the door like she could pull history out of the hinges if she tried hard enough. I remembered the laughter we once had inside those walls and how I ignored what I should have seen sooner. I tightened my grip on the new keys and let the moment pass without touching it. The fifth day began thick and still. I was at Cole's kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold when my phone buzzed. A text from the process server. Service complete. Across town, the doorbell rang at her parents' house. Her mother answered and came back holding 2 thick manila envelopes. "These are for you," she said. I had arranged both. One from my attorney, petition, exhibits, and a request for temporary orders, and one from the institutions that needed to say, in their own polite language, that access had changed and accounts were not hers to touch. I did not need a camera to see Ava's hands hovering over those envelopes, shaking a little. I set my coffee down and looked at the clock. There is a point where a plan stops being a plan and becomes a timeline. I had crossed it days ago. I was not in that kitchen when the doorbell rang, but I know how it played out. The process server did his job. 2 thick envelopes changed hands. Ava already knew what waited inside. She tore open the first one fast enough to catch a nail on the paper. At the top was the heading that makes your stomach drop, petition for divorce. Her name beside mine, black ink, calm and official. Behind it, clipped in place, sat our prenuptial agreement with the key lines marked. It said what it had always said. She would not walk away with what was never hers. No, she would have whispered, shaking her head like she could rattle the letters off the page. She flipped through looking for a mistake, a hole, a door she could slip through. Every paragraph was another wall. I can picture her father lowering the newspaper, jaw set. I can picture her mother's hands pressed together at her chest, eyes darker than anger. Before Ava could gather a defense, the second envelope split open. Photographs slid across the table in a glossy spill. There she was, laughing at another man's joke. There was the entrance to the Windsor Hotel at night. There was her hand set easy on his arm like it belonged there. After the photographs came a receipt stamped with a date and time that did not care about excuses. A small sound from her mother. A chair leg scraping tile as her father stood. Heat up the neck. Vision gone watery. It is not what it looks like, she would try, but the lie would not stand up. The pages said otherwise, loud and plain. Enough, her father would say, quiet and hard. This was the trap Ava never saw. I did not raise my voice. I did not chase her across town. I said nothing and let the record speak. Silence did the heavy lifting, and truth carried the rest. Her mother reached for the photographs, not to comfort, but to take them out of sight like they were burning. Ava folded in on herself at the table and sobbed behind her hands. For the first time since it started, she understood. I had not walked away because I was weak. I had done the work in daylight and put a clean edge on it. While she chased the idea of reconciliation, I had arranged a public, legal finish. Then came a new kind of quiet. Her parents did not scold. They did not ask questions. The only sound in the room was the soft shuffle of paper as her father squared the stacks, and the slow breath of a mother wondering where the line got crossed. There are moments when a plan stops being a plan and becomes a fact. This was that moment. The marriage was over. The proof did not blink. Somewhere across town I kept my own silence, because there was nothing left to say. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. If this story hit a nerve, do not forget to like and subscribe for more true-to-life stories. 6 months later, the clerk at the courthouse stamped the final decree and slid the papers across to my attorney. The room smelled like paper and old carpet. No speeches, no scenes, just a judge's signature that made everything official. I walked out into bright daylight and felt the air move through me like a clean wind after a storm. The prenuptial agreement held. Ava kept her personal things and a fair share of what was always hers. I kept the house, my accounts, and my quiet. There was no alimony. There were no appeals. When the envelope arrived with the final order, I put it in the safe with my passport and the deed. I did not frame it. I did not need a trophy. That night I sat on the porch with a mug of coffee and listened to the crickets. The porch light threw a soft circle on the steps I had repaired last summer. It felt good to look at something I had built with my own hands and know it would hold. A small thing, but true. I sent a box to Ava's mother the week after the decree. Old photographs. A childhood bracelet I found behind a dresser. A wedding program pressed flat between 2 pages of a cookbook. I added a short note that said, "These belong with your family." I did not say anything else. Sometimes respect is quiet. People ask what changed. Everything and not much. I still open the shop on time. I still sweep sawdust into the same bin. I still fix wobbly stools for customers who tell long stories because they need to. But the space inside my life is different. It has edges again. I stopped checking Ava's cloud the day the court signed off. I deleted the login and threw the paper with that password into the shredder. Proof served its purpose. Curiosity does not. I do not track where she lives now. Last I heard, she moved into a small apartment near her parents while she rebuilds. I do not wish her harm. I do not wish her anything at all. That is not cruelty. It is an even line. Cole Turner still has a key. He drops by on Sunday evenings, and we grill whatever he brings in a paper sack. We do not talk about the old story unless the lesson rises on its own. When it does, it sounds like this. Do not shout when silence will do. Do not guess when you can gather proof. Do not confuse drama with action. Fix what you can fix. Lock what you need to lock. Walk away from the rest. As for Frank Dalton, I sent him a thank you note and a gift card that bought him a new briefcase, or so he said. He wrote back one sentence. You were the rare client who wanted the truth more than a performance. I pinned that note on the corkboard in my shop. Not because I need the praise, because I need the reminder. I took one photograph out of the house, the one of me standing beside the first set of shelves I ever built. Hair too long, grin too wide, stain on my forearm. I hung it over the workbench. It is good to remember that a life is made the same way a bookcase is made. Measure twice. Cut once. Sand the edges. Test the weight before you trust it. If you were standing where I stood, I hope you hear this part clearly. You are not required to light your life on fire to prove you were hurt. Take the steps you can defend in daylight. Protect yourself without becoming what you faced. When the papers are signed, choose a better project. Give your hands something honest to do. A year from now, if I am lucky, this house will smell like coffee and cedar and summer rain. The locks will click the same clean way. The porch will hold. I will still be the quiet man who fixes things. Only now I know that sometimes the thing that needs fixing is the life you live inside your own walls. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Tell me what you would have done differently.